Good afternoon, everyone, wherever you are. We are here with Lama Choedak Rinpoche at SIBA Retreat Centre, which is in the beautiful East Gippsland. And we're nearing the end of a 10-day calm abiding meditation retreat, special insight retreat. For those of you who haven't met Rinpoche, Rinpoche has had quite an extraordinary life. He was born into a nomadic family high on the Tibetan plateau, and then having to flee Tibet, he was raised as a refugee in Nepal, and had a very difficult time there, and completed his schooling and went into a monastery, and trained for 12 years in a monastery. As part of his training in the monastery, he completed a 3.5-year solitary meditation retreat, and after that, he was translating for a lot of the masters that were coming out of Tibet, and thankfully he's been teaching here in the West for the last 30 years, and has made a huge contribution to the passing on of Buddhist knowledge. And we're very fortunate to have him here with us, and he's agreed to do a Q&A. So we've got a bunch of questions from the people on the retreat, and so we might just start straight into that now, Rinpoche. Thank you. So the first question is, Buddhism has this really beautiful way of blending into whatever cultures it meets. And Buddhism's quite new in the West, particularly here in Australia. How do you see it blending into the culture here, and how much more does it need to develop before it gets a good, strong sort of basis in our culture?
Well, as anything, to blend well in a new culture, the teaching itself is very adaptable to everyone who pay heed to it. But cultural box in which Buddhism has been preserved over the last 2,500 years or so is going to bring their cultural component to it. And places like Australia or any Western country have a very, very distinct culture background, cultural, religious, and background. And because of that, it will take more than time people are patient to wait until it truly blends in. Even in Tibet, Tibet is not necessarily very easy to Tibetans were resistors of Buddhism, not easy welcomers at the very beginning. They had their own indigenous belief born, and it took more than 300 years to be established properly before it became integral part of the Tibetan culture. I think things are moving much faster in the 21st century than before in terms of mode of communication, or people more well-read and so on. And also most people turning to Buddhism were or are they themselves disgruntled with other religious traditions. So that much harder clients to blend in, because they have critical mind. Buddhism, although prefers that, but they're critical mind, but they still have a strong Judeo-Christian values blended in their mind, how black and white. And this is going to take much longer time before Buddhism is really established. Of course, there will be still minority people who really are following them, and there are already quite a lot of centers which has quite increasing number of followers. But to become really established in here, it will take a long time. Reason because Buddhism seems to be only strong in countries where it spread, where monasticism is embraced very well. And so the Western world, I don't think the monasticism doesn't have a good name. And so they always think, oh, is that the people, So therefore there's a lot of resistance to that. If Buddhism itself and its current holders of the lineage are willing to adapt the teachings to the new people by thinking more liberally, then there's more chances of doing that. But Buddhism's and its teachers are just as conservative and inward-looking, and so he sees Buddhism always in the box. They were brought up in the culture. It would have a lot of misunderstanding. You can see the last 50 years of, kind of in early enthusiasm to Buddhism because of the popularity of its message and likes of people like His Holiness Dalai Lama. They all expect all Buddhist teacher or to be like him, immaculate and like that. But they actually don't realize it's not like that. Samsara is full of sentient beings, and they always idealize someone to be perfect, and all the people are having lots of trouble with their own religious background by expecting just that. And so in old days, maybe it was different, but now the world is very, very smaller. So I think this critical thinking and people being disgruntled with their old religious background and nevertheless bringing a lot of the same values from that and expect them to be topped up by Buddhism, it's a misfit. So they have to totally renounce that mode of thinking and try to cross-fertilize Buddhist and value itself. How do Buddhists deal with, if they really were to embrace teaching, how they should approach? So people bringing certain Judeo-Christian values and expect that to use that as a way to assess Buddhism. So that's that, and all the very competent people are much more educated. They have degrees, they have job, they have very good income. And so their way of approaching religion and Buddhism is they want something really unique. These things couldn't answer. Whereas traditional followers Buddhism was quite a different thing, So like Tibetan people are not really critical thinkers. People think Buddhism is really rational. The teachings are, but practitioners have to be really heart-oriented. And when people are using more of their logical thinking, critical thinking, they're too critical to the extent that criticality that Buddhism promotes actually defeats their search. So lots of people are very short-lived practitioners, and so only small group will stay long because they will be able to blend in the teachings. They really need, this is how we Buddhists should think. We shouldn't be bringing in this kind of values in. And then, so that will take time. So I think it will take a long time because even in the Asian cultures, Buddhism is still very hinged on with monasticism. And they almost think without monasticism, Buddhism doesn't exist. So I would say now to establish monasticism in the West, it hasn't happened yet. There are a few, but there haven't been actually very dynamic Western monk leaders who actually became very good disciples of their teachers, of the different Buddhist lineages have really stood firm. There are some, but if they try to bring in some new forms, they think they are breaking the rules from the traditional, and so you can see that.
Okay. What was the main message that Buddha wanted to bring to the world? In a nutshell.
Yes. What is the nut? all nuts got different. All shells got different nuts in them. Of course, main message is that all the things that we have or we are seeking are but not cause of happiness. And he wanted to point that. And so the message of Buddhist teaching is the world that actually do not have any lasting cause of happiness. There are temporary cause of happiness, but if you don't have deeper than that, it will all become more cause of disappointment than happiness. So right now, people have happiness from material and technological development, but these are happiness that are mixed with the sorrows, and so sorrow takes over the happiness. The happiness is only temporary, and sorrow seems to have a very long-lasting kind of a basis. So Buddha wanted to teach how to get rid of this erroneous view that the life is about searching happiness. These days, mistakenly, people promote Buddhism, not understanding Buddha's message that Buddhism is to promote happiness, and the teaching says that there is no happiness. There is no real happiness that actually lasts. That happiness is a temporary. So if you know temporariness of happiness, then of course you will have the capacity to not to be disappointed when they do change. But most people have this rigid view they should expect it to the long-lasting happiness. So therefore, Buddha's message is that all of this dissatisfactoriness will still escalate unless one remedies greed, hatred, and selfishness. Even if you have physical pleasure or comfort or all this will be just a temporary and distractor for you to actually doing the real search. So therefore, his own departure from the palace life was the real message that you need to go for deeper meaning, to search real lasting happiness. Try to discover the root cause of suffering is craving for I and me and mine. And most people say, why not? Most people think we should look after ourselves. And that people have been doing that so long, but it actually is causing the real problems that they do not want to face. And Buddha's message is try to realize selflessness and try to serve others selflessly, whereas when the material world itself is going in the opposite direction. So Buddha's message is really how to practice kindness to each other who don't know how to do this. And let's therefore learn a way how to educate oneself through discipline, through mindfulness, and then develop wisdom as a result of that. So he's really trying to empower people to awaken from the sleep they are not aware they are sleeping. So therefore, the message is how to achieve enlightenment. I'm not saying the ultimate enlightenment, and slowly that one gains to wake up from the one's own what you call karmic disposition or one's habits. People need to see those things need to be changed and dropped to replace them with wholesome and good and kind and selfless habits. The people have more lasting happiness if they practice kindness and selflessness. Those happiness becomes more happiness that actually may lead to ultimate enlightenment. But all the other happiness are very, very temporary, and that actually distract us from really searching the real higher purpose of life, the enlightenment.
Thank you. So there's some question about how do busy householders, family life, integrate the teachings into their life? And the specific question is, what are the most important prayers, practices, and mantras that people who feel time poor should do if they want to follow Buddha's path?
Well, the lay people or householders have a lot more what you call demands in various practical aspects of life, but they don't need to. They can actually minimize the habit of having to work like donkeys. They can minimize the work and have less greed, less need, and more time to contemplate and practice. So one way is that one actually work less and conserve time and then practice. But even that, with commitment of, as you said, family and children, household, there's a lot of demands on the person. It's really if one wants to live in a very big city life, then that's what require one of. But even then, people want to live in a kind of a 2-3 generation together, harmoniously, respectfully, then of course everybody support each other. So in that case, they will have more time to practice, because not everybody have to work to pay off the huge expensive. They're living a very expensive life. If they live a more simple life, move to the countryside like SIBA, and live in the huts and make your own food, grow your own vegetables. So we should have a return to the village campaign and live simple life, and don't be too much, don't live very expensive lifestyle. And you can live simply, and then you have quality time. And then, of course, prayers and meditations is there's always a brief version, there's always a medium version, there's a really, really long-winded version as well. So you can always do that according to your time's availability. It's not so much one, you can do like whenever you have some trouble in Buddhism, we say just say Om Mani Padme Hum. If something difficulty, it straight away makes your mind to consider something deeper than what it is. You need to interrupt the train of thoughts that is really disallowing the person to come sane themselves. So if they have a simple technique of reciting some prayer like Om Mani Padme Hum, or loving kindness, so tolerance, or give peace a chance, or whatever small sort of phrases one can remember, that would be useful. But main thing is people need to have very strong determination to follow the way of the Buddha. And they must make some commitment for which the time isn't insignificant. Time should be significant. Because if one really loves Dharma, one should require time, commitment for that. If one is practicing, giving minimalist time, expecting a lot of results, it's not possible, So that's why there's no quick prayer you can do, but actually there's no show of commitment. If the lifestyle is very, very unbalanced, not enough spiritual periodic commitment, not communal, not doing things for the community, not doing regularly, not doing periodically. If you look at any religious community, people are community members by virtue of doing things at the church group regularly. They may not be learning a lot about gospel, but they're still doing a lot. But quite a lot of Buddhists aren't like that. If the rest of people all want to watch as if there was some committed team of army the Buddha has sent for the temple or monastery to run. We don't have full-time monks and nuns like they do. And even if they have to fully be provided by the lay people. So all the people are doing are volunteers, and the rest of other people aren't committed. So if you're engaging, doing things, that is a practice. Don't have to be always everybody doing prayers. Some people could do various things to support various roles, and then it indirectly contributes to their practice, what we call sadhana, through your work, through your service, through your commitment. So there are a lot of practitioners in the monastery. All the monasteries are looked after by the very members of themselves. They are all fed 3 meals to all of them by the monastery. So it's important that how we can be a Sangha member, because people have this idea the Sangha is only ordained and full-time practitioners. Sangha is made out of laymen, laywomen, fully ordained monk, fully ordained nun. So all needs to really build the community together. And when they are part of it, when they practice it, and they practice the prayers and those things they do together, have a sort of a frequency with which they rely upon. So they need to feel very much part of the Sangha, and to do things for and together with others fairly periodically. And therefore they do not feel deprived of participating in things that they think when they do, it only has to be prayer. Householders should be doing things for the upliftment of the teaching, and that's what most of our community are. It's all supported by committee members, or some not committee members, but still volunteers doing things, various things. So if they participate, and they will learn the prayers, and they learn how to tailor which prayer they can do, fit in. Some more regularly, others just periodically. So the prayers will come in their mind, whichever is more appropriate.
So everyone's part of a greater whole.
Yeah. It's very, very important that I'm alone. Very important not to think I'm alone. What can I do to help myself? If one did things with people, you feel lifted by the whole community spirit. And sure, we all have to do our bit as a personal practice. Only one needs to learn them as one goes. And then one needs to select and choose which prayer works, which practice works for themselves on a short-term basis or long-term basis. So one gets to know how to pick a practice more favorably that works with oneself.
The practices, Buddhist practices of mindfulness and loving kindness, are really getting used in a lot of psychology and schools and all around the world, but they haven't got the religious component to them. Do you think they're still just as effective without the religious devotional aspect that Buddhism has?
Yeah, those people who wanted to use and take Buddhist wisdom and insight and what they call secularly, and without having to make a religious commitment as if that's going to sort of kill the spirit or usefulness of it. Some people are trying to do that by promoting secular Buddhism, because or saying that you can practice Buddhism as a philosophy, or they say, I never want to practice Buddhism as a religion, they said. They have this amazing aversion to religion. This is what I was saying, There's quite a number of intellectualists who actually want to follow Buddhism as an intellectual stimulation. They really wanted the rationalist way of thinking the Buddhist thought. But when it comes to say promote, when they promote, say, mindfulness, they're mainly talking about productivity and accuracy and leadership, increase your income to 6-digit and things like that. When people are overly promoting mindfulness for the sake of materialism, then I think it's not secular Buddhism, it's material Buddhism. So of course we need a roof over our head, we need to cover our overheads and so on, but slowly now Buddhism and its culture need to move and establish in culture like Australia as they were supported in the traditional countries, all by dana. That would be the best way to go, because otherwise what's happening is people don't want to follow the religious way, but they wanted to use the Buddhist teaching for their commercial kind of huge fees they charge, for very, very huge fees. And so they want to teach it as a mindfulness practices, but without the religious component. In the meantime, they don't want to respect it as they received it mostly free. And then I've seen some people do that. They totally went in a materialistic way and charging like huge money, providing very little, and that is always Buddhist teaching, and they package it as a kind of a therapy and to feel good, and they think it is Buddhism. But Buddhism was never taught for happiness. Buddhism was taught for enlightenment, But these days they're promoting happiness and its causes. They think Buddhism is that. And where's the teaching that Buddhism is a happiness? It's a kind of modern watered version of Buddhism. Buddha says there is no real happiness in life. From the summit of the universe down to the lowest hell, there's not a single place there's everything satisfactory, let alone lasting happiness. Because whose excrement smells good? Nobody's excrement smells good. how could you say there is happiness in smell good shit, you know? So it's not Buddhism. When they're promoting happiness for causes, it's not Buddhism. It's something else. I don't know what it is. It's definitely not even secular Buddhism. So that's happening, but it's unavoidable, because when Buddhism teachings are open in the air, people will see, wow, that's some good ideas. I can do this. I can say. They will do that. But Buddhist teachers or tradition will never say you can't do this, you can't do this, because that's not our right either. But students who really know how the teachings are respected and kept shouldn't be watering down like that for whatever gains there is, because sometimes so there are a number of reasons that people are doing that, but most of them don't realize it needs to be have some respect. You need to tell if your product comes from somewhere, you got to tell where it came from. You know, they almost think it came from their research or psychology or something. People don't even want to do that. And so we always have to tell who our teacher is, where we studied, and so try to say that. And if they ever say who their teacher is, they say Dalai Lama is their teachers. Who is Dalai Lama as a personal teacher? He got millions of people listen. Why doesn't the people say such and such the teacher who actually they studied with their teacher? They don't. Why? So they're using His Holiness name as they are his student. And I know somebody who met a Western teacher, and afterwards, because she didn't meet any other teachers, Western teachers, he was really good as far as he can help. As soon as he met the Tibetan teacher, she asked us, I regret I took refuge with him. I really want to take refuge with authentic Tibetan lamas, And so this person wanted to sort of cancel the past refuge she took, and she wanted to take again. And I was telling, you don't never take refuge with person. You take refuge at the triple gem. You should ever thankful to the man who gave you the teachings. You shouldn't sort of go this hierarchy thing that you should only take refuge from the Dalai Lama. Dalai Lama doesn't give refuge ceremony. He never have time to cut your hair. So he never does. If he does, there will be 20,000 people all repeating the same thing. You see what I mean? So even if that happens, you don't say, I took refuge with Dalai Lama, I took refuge with the Sakya, I took refuge. People always say that, They don't say, I studied with such and such. They don't have the humility to accept the person they met the teaching from, because when it comes to them, they want to talk. Their credential is they are student of Dalai Lama or something. But in the actual teaching, they're promoting mindfulness and happiness and causes, because maybe His Holiness Dalai Lama has given one or two talk on happiness and causes, but that's because the topic of the course. But His Holiness says, happiness and causes. Do you want me to talk about that? If you look at some places, he was grinning. The whole topic is not quite. But then he becomes he's always very humble and try to please the people, and people promoting that. But happiness and causes is not a Buddhist theme. So this is what I'm saying is how people are using the teaching in the name of mindfulness and their product or whatever, but actually they are not adhering, following the teachings really, really faithfully. Because if they do, they're very critical. They don't see the point of some of the practices, and there's a huge cultural hurdle which very few have actually overcome it yet. And understandably, it will take years, because people have to understand the culture of those people and what aspect of should be kept and what aspect should be slowly modified. But people are talking about Western Buddhism before they have nothing, So there is that kind of impatient how to adapt so quickly. Yeah,
it's quite possible that in the West, religion's got a sort of a bad name for itself, and people are averse to religion. But what is religion to you as someone who's grown up in Buddhism? What does religion mean to you? And how does the Buddhist religion differ from a theistic philosophical understanding? What are the similarities? What are the differences? And yeah, mainly, what is religion to you? That people are trying to abandon religion.
Well, religion in Buddhism, it is a tool, a way, or teaching that cures your sorrow and its causes. And if someone who teaches that, and then when you learn that, cures you, and so Buddha himself is regarded as the doctor. Doctor doesn't cure the diseased person, but if the patient follows the prescription he gives. But people theistically want to worship the doctor and ask him to save their life without them having to follow the follow the actual medicine. So if people look always up to the God that he will save you from going to hell, and also quite a lot of people also, even they think the Buddhists, they actually always look at the Buddha or Buddhist teachers, like his always Dalai Lama or someone who will pluck them out of Bardo, and just because you pray to them and you won't go in the hell realm. People still have these kind of beliefs. But we are taught in really, really good teachings that nobody saves you. Even Buddha is not a savior. So the theistic religious people always look some savior who you confess to will pardon, who you pray to will give you a free ride, and that you don't have to face your karmic consequences. For us, when we understand, majority of people also follow even Buddhism like theistic people do. They actually believe the Buddha rescues them. If you pray to Amitabha, he will make sure you get front row in Sukhavati realm, as there was a lot of vacancy there, people actually believe in that, And we also culturally say, oh, pray to Amitabha, you're dying or something. Amitabha is waiting for all these calls. Then he sent his rescue mission to people. Have all this theistic that there is a savior out there. So for us, for me and now this time of my life, of course, my own understanding of Dharma is different from what we religiously believed, And a lot of the belief I had, those were when I have to follow Buddhism in the box. Now I don't follow Buddhism in the box anymore, because they are taught for the peasants who to believe that you be saved, do this, you be saved, as you do have a savior out there. I don't see that Dharma and Buddhism, religious understanding Buddhism, that anymore. It's more like a love of the philosophy. When you try to understand the philosophy, you try to understand your mind and how tricky it is. That is more that you treat your mind to the highest potential the Buddha achieved. And when you would have this really good regard for your mind that has potential to be like the Buddha, then you have more confidence in the teaching, because the teaching seems to have an amazing answer how the mind works and how the mind creates its trouble. So then we become much more cognitive and metacognitive and subjectively more conscious of our thought and our mind, rather than what external objects or even believing in the teaching will do. So believing in the teaching is much better than having a wrong view. We know that because wrong view brings wrong results, and belief in makes us a lot more safer, because we do not indulge into doubt and wrong view, but we rather develop a certain incontrovertibility of the teachings. So religion to me is based on belief that you try to live, and not just believe in it, you don't have to live. So if you actually believe in the teaching and also try to modify your own life, that is actually to the exact pointing of the teachings. And so when a person practices that, then he knows every other human beings and other living beings also are struggling to find a lasting, meaningful life to live, whether they live more than one life, or whether they don't believe Buddhist belief is there's continuity of life after life until you gain enlightenment. So if you can't get everything right in this life, that's not end of the world. You will get another chance. Chances are that life like this will be very hard to get by once again. So therefore, you must work on this so that this is not gone wasted. Because of that, there's a lot of empowering to ourselves. It's all in our hand rather than in the hand of someone superior out there. Sure, it's good to see the Buddha is omniscient. He bear witness to you, whether you do good in person or whether you do anything in behind people, you will never escape. So you just have this feeling that law of karma is your mirror. Whether Buddha is watching you or not, you know in your heart what is proper thing you should be trying to do and what are the things you should improve. So therefore, the more you follow Buddhism, the more you are actually confronting yourself, because it's in the self is the biggest problem. Self is the biggest problem, but at the same time it is the most important one we have to work with. If we do, we can practice selflessness. If the self that we think we are becomes selfless, then there is real use of being service and benefit to others. Once one start living in the selflessness through behavior rather than merely from philosophical belief and no self, thinking of it as empty, it becomes neither here nor there. But behavior and philosophy plus discipline are all sort of harmonious blends together. Then one's belief in the emptiness of self, but that realization of emptiness of self, we realize only if you behave selflessly. So the conduct, if you serve other sentient beings more, put the importance of others than yourself. So the whole idea of Buddhist religion to me is treating sentient beings as a Lord. Lord sentient being. And the teachings of Buddha is one which gave you this magical what I call message to treat sentient beings as a Lord, yourself as a serving their benefit selflessly, and Buddha as a model. And then when you're able to do that, then the teaching of the Buddha becomes the very medicine to cure your troubles, cure your neurosis and wrong views, and that whole behavior of being selflessness is one that changes you to become that. The more we are selfless, then the more we become what I call useful, and we we might we won't even have regret when we die, for instance. And if we die without any sense of regret, that means that even if there is all chances of rebirth, you don't fear whatever would come, because you believe in accepting the result of whatever you did. If you was immaculate performer in this life, and you don't need to fear and regret. And if you didn't do very well in this life, you can't escape. You can't escape. You will be met on the other side, those in uniform. We call Yamaraja. Yamaraja will meet you on the other side.
That leads on to another question, karma. So karma is a word that's used a lot by people. Oh, that's your karma, that's your good karma, that's your bad karma. But could you explain a little for us how karma works, and where is karma recorded? Is it something there's a universe record karma, and how is karma actually dictated for people?
Yeah, karma predates Buddha, Karma predates Buddha, and Buddhism had no copyright. And karma is a law of consequences. It is not some fixed kind of fate-like thing. Nobody records it. Karma means action and its result. So whether we have physical deed or sayings by the word, by mouth, and the thoughts. Thought, karma, you have word karma and deed karma. Means the action, means consequences of what you say, do, and think. A lot of people don't believe in the law of cause and effect, but they experience the consequences of what they did. So karma is not something that people believe will face. People who don't believe don't face. It's a natural law. It's like gravitation. If you don't believe in gravitation, does it mean you wouldn't fall on the ground? even before Isaac Newton discovered, he himself fell from the mother's womb on the ground. so you don't need to, you don't need to, I don't know whether he fell or someone picked him up, but I'm assuming a lot of women give birth and usually the baby drops, so that's a water block. There you go. the baby drops. So it's the law of gravity, a law of the gravity of your action that is good. If you did so much generosity, in your some past, you will have lots of people giving things to you. You never have shortage of things. They just come from least expected places in space. You never have shortage of things. But those who did not create the action of generosity, but maybe very miser, maybe even robbed from people, stole from people, no matter how much they work in this life, they never have enough. They're always discontent. Even they don't have contentment because of the consequences of their craving and covetousness and theft and stealing they did. And in this life, they will lose many things. Even if firstly they wouldn't have much. What those they have, they will be swindled and cheated by others that you have a great heartache with. A lot of people are cheated. People are swindled and deceived by people. There are consequences of the actions one has done in the past, but nobody knows knows or remember what they did. So the karma is consequences of action that are similar to your experience. We did it to others. So if we're experiencing positive, maybe say we have a loving family and children and a lot of good health, it's because you have created such things to other people in the past, and you are blessed with them in this life. And so some of those results, if consequences of action, is not just life to life, but within the same life, within few years' time, people who do 4 years degree, they will reaping the result in 10 years' time. But if they didn't study or they were not diligent, and then they don't have a degree, and they can't get a that kind of job, and they have to do whatever other jobs that is more demanding. So therefore the karma means really action and its reaction. Every action has a consequences. And when one knows the law of causality, they say, how do you know what did you do in the past? How would you know what you will be future like? They say, in order to know what you did in the past, look at the present body's experience. What are you experiencing in this? Now, if you experience a lot of health, means you have been very kind, you have tended, you have nursed, you have nurtured others who need care and support. Because of that, they really appreciated support. Because what you gave and good health care and support and nurture, we also experience a lot of good health, and we don't have many health problems because of the. And Shima Kanjita is similar to what you will experience in the future. Look at the present attitude. So your present attitude are crook or or greedy or ungrateful or something like that, you will always be stuck with that attitude. No matter what you have, it's not have or don't have. Some people have lots of things, but they're never contented. They're so greedy. They still never think what they have. They always wish I have that. I wish I was that. I wish I was living there. I wish I was with these kind of people. They never be contented. Why? Because they have always never been contented. Those people who have this feeling of being able to be satisfied always feel what they have is more than what I need. I have much more than I need. Greed has no end, bottomless pit. But what I need is very, very little. So this question at the beginning, we were talking about how people should fit with the work and demand of society and Dharma. If one simplify one's living, it doesn't have to be. It's not very expensive. It's not very expensive. You know where to live. That is inexpensive, and what you do, what you don't use, then you can actually sort of simplify your life, and it doesn't have to have the stress of the people who live in some very, very expensive suburbs and the style they eat or drink, and then of course you have to pay all of that. So there are lots of people who spend a lot of time working, and just as much they suffer, and they have no time to enjoy anything, relax, because they are actually reaping what they're sowing, the seed of. So busy, so demanding, so greedy. If those who choose to have simpler life and less expensive things you use, and not being mean or like that, but just to learn to moderate things, then your life is a lot more simpler. And therefore you realize I have much more relaxed life because I don't have to work 5 days a week, people say. Other people are doing 2 jobs 5 days a week. Some people are working 3 days a week, but simplify their life. It's more than enough, and they have much time to do what they really love to do. Why? Because they're deciding what is the demand of their life. If demand is greater, and then there will be much more effort needed to put. If they reduce and simplify their action, their demand, or what they use, or where they don't go, and some people eat out almost 2-3 nights a week, go out to parties, or go skiing, go to orchestras in Sydney, all this like that. When you do that, of course, you are making your life very, very expensive, and you are very time poor to make up with that. And then people already experience the consequences what they lived. Others who have really worked hard, but then they want to retire early because they work very hard. Now they actually can live and put their feet up because they work last 20 years very strongly, and they saved, and now they don't have to be a burden to the society because they didn't create the causes for it. So karma means what is the things we did, whatever you sow, so you shall reap. So it's nothing really Buddhist about it. It's the cause and effect. Buddhist teachings talk about the concept of karma, but Christian teaching teaches the same thing. They say whatever you sow, you reap. So you sow chili, you will grow chili. You sow chili and expect to have sugar cane. It's not possible.
So sticking on that point of people making a better lives for themselves with more time and more space to reflect on meaningful things, people feel caught up in their lives, and they know they need to make a change, but they can't quite seem to make that change. But just the sheer momentum and distraction and the lack of time and space, their life just passes by, and they have the regret at the end of their life that they didn't make the change. So what advice can you give to people who may be listening to this and really feeling in their heart they do need to make that shift, but just the speed, the pace of their life doesn't seem to stop it, and it all just feels too complicated? So from a Buddhist perspective, how do we make significant change in the middle of our lives?
Good question. The reason we are not able to make change, even though we know we need to, is because people think they got a lot of time. We don't have time. We are walking towards the gallows. If someone is condemned to the gallows, every step he walks towards it, he's getting closer to it, and he's not getting further away from it. People are not aware of the inevitability of death, how impermanent, how fragile our life is, how when our time to die comes, who nobody knows. Because if there was a guarantee how many years you live, that would be good. But we live in a world where our lifespan is completely uncertain. But only thing that is certain is you can die anytime. Why? Because you were born. The cause of your death is already birth. So don't even try to fear of death, because it's not going to be allayable. If you think it will rain, you may take the umbrella. You can allay that getting wet. But you cannot fear death and then deny it. But the more you fear death, probably more you're going to cause to come it quickly. So most people don't fear death. In Buddhism, the mindfulness of the death is integral part of mindfulness of how to live. That when a person wants to live meaningfully, making change, they should make change by certain time. They should make an attempt to, I must change by this time. If I don't, it'll be too late. So to do that, they must remember the certainty of death. And they should think of the uncertainty of time of death. When people think of death, then they want to do quickly before that happens. And then they want to change before it's too late. And whether it's a different changes or turning a bit more spiritual in one's life, one only do that when one think of, when I die, all these things I work like a slave to get, to hoard, to possess, this is all going to be no use whatsoever. This has become cause a burden of discord and conflict and competitiveness and jealousy and all the sweat and tear wildlife. So it has causally brought no happiness. It only brought problems. It brought conflict. It brought stress. It brought anger and all these. So when is these things going to bring us real happiness? They don't. They become the cause of the burden if one doesn't think of the inevitable. So therefore, in order to make changes, if we want to change, one should think of, make a particular timeline. I must change by this, and otherwise it's too late. It's been in the back of mind for so long, but it shouldn't be in the back of mind. It should be forefront of my mind, and therefore bring change by such and such. And so, and then you need to weigh up all the pros and cons. What is the change from when, where to where, and so on. So basically, one needs to simplify one's life more. One should plan to die, then plan to live. Because when you plan to die, then you start really living. Then you start practicing kindness to each other, generosity to each other, forgive each other, give things away before it's too late. And then that makes everybody feel loved or respected or that. And then you also get to do things you have long delayed. Like lots of people want to travel or do want to retreat, and they should do it as they have no time left. And so then they get to do the things that are left, and they have to also give away things that you won't be there to give them. And it's true, yeah, you won't be there to give them and let alone use them. But if you can give them before you die, they'll appreciate you. But you left a lot of things in a death state. Most people don't want to touch it because there's a death state, you see. But if you gave while alive, they will honor your generosity. And they use. So most people are slave to their possessions. They become slave of the possession at the beginning, in the middle, and even at the end. So when they do not free themselves from becoming enslaved by materialism, spirituality is neglected. Any positive change one wants to make is ignored and neglected. And then one is nagging that one should do. But so the laziness is cause of many inability to make changes and die regretfully, But if one diligently tries to make change by doing a timeline, I must change by such and such. Otherwise, this will be nagging me forever. And I don't have time that is forever. I got only limited time. So what are the few things priority I should do? So the person who really need to change, he will have to firstly list down all the things he won't do, that he's doing. So he should free up time by the things that he's doing, but not so useful. Then he free up time, and that's a change because he's got no more time to reach When he's more time rich, then he can have time to do the things he loves to do. And so therefore he's reducing attachment to the things that are not really useful and increasing commitment towards what is. The change is that. Change means one has to drop some, adopt some good, drop some not so useful ones, and replace them with good adoption. When you do that, there will be a actually sign, oh, person is not doing that anymore. Because of that, he's free on Mondays or Thursdays or whatever. That what is he doing? Now he's able to do that because I stopped doing that. Because what did you stop doing? Stamp collection. Who will get anywhere with that? You know, and playing golf. Who will get anywhere like that? You know, how many holes do you want to play? You know, why you want to put the little ball in the hole? You can go and put it in there. A lot easier than trying to go. So that's what ridiculous unnecessary exercise. You know, if the ball needs to really go in the hole, why don't you just run and take it, put it in there? Some are completely useless recreation activities. They might be enjoyable because your friends also does that. Silly. You have friends who also want to do that, which is so unnecessary. No use. So why, if there is a real great achievement and feeling of success and achievement, we can all go and put the ball where nobody's there, and you just go in there. It would be good, you know. Yeah. This is what, have you watched the movie called In the Cup, you know? Like that, you know. They don't know the whole countries are fighting for a cup they never get to drink from. Yeah, so you have to reduce quite a lot of those distracting activities. You need to be free to bring changes, so you stop. I'm not necessarily saying you should drop sporting activities. I'm just talking about what are the things that are taking up your so much time that you're not free to make any changes. Yeah.
Thank you, Rinpoche. It's really good advice and something for all you golfers to think about too. I guess we're all golfing in one way or the other, aren't we? So sticking on the topic of a meaningful life, a lot of us wonder with our children, our grandchildren, what are the important aspects of Dharma that we can share with them? And a lot of us have concern that our children are really being raised by just looking at devices the whole time, and distraction is a big problem in general, but it seems to be getting worse with social media. And you walk in any city street, most people are walking along looking at their phones. So I'm wondering your thoughts on that, and how we can work with that as a society so that we don't get completely lost in distraction.
Yes, of course. There are lots of people who previously need babysitters. Nowadays, they don't need one because there's a babysitter in the baby's hand. So there's a good aspect of good materials that people are using, where young people can learn quickly and research quickly, but at the same time, people are with people, but they're not with each other. They're not talking to each other. So there's whatever kind of good system or discipline, home discipline that parents or family does, where they work-related or social relation activity, when they must do that sometime, but they also must limit themselves using. If they see the adult using that all the time, and they would do just that, you know. And if they give that gadgets too early, you know, then they become addicted to it, you know. You wouldn't believe how gadget addiction is a distraction, because people are not even doing what they're doing. They're just always using the gadget. And so as a you know, some people says, oh, when you're meeting with somebody, you shouldn't even take the gadget with you, you know. You should leave it somewhere. You don't bring into the place. You just leave it behind. If they see that where it's okay to use, when it's not okay to use, have a good system. If one has a really young family raising, if that could be done by the adults very early on, then they know. But if they haven't seen any consistent rule that is adopted by the parents or adult, of course, then they also will follow the suit. So I suppose a lot of time adults are people are room, but they are all looking at their own gadget. They're not talking to each other. They hardly had any interaction with each other, and they're also sending text to each other. I'm sending text to you. You can say, wait, I send you the text. Just watch that. So I wouldn't then reply, give answer to me. So go on watch my. So we become over dependent on such things. So yeah, I have this. I'm generally speaking, the gadgets has helped a lot. Crisis, problem, you can inform, you can warn. So there's a lot of positive side to it. But at the same time, it has a little bit of it becomes totally dominant in people's lives. So it's just question is how much you moderate. And as everything is used by moderation. Chocolates are delicious, but if you to eat too much, kidney will say, "What's it doing to me?" Or what a certain department downstairs, downstairs or upstairs, I don't know. And they say, "What are you doing? It's delicious in your mouth, but it's not out here." So like that, so they are necessary to use, but how much is more than it's just how much is useful or just too much. Sometimes they're overrated. They're overrated.
And in raising a young family, what would you say are the key principles to try to share with young children? We had a question come in earlier saying when kids are 2, we start labeling what everything is. And the question was, is that giving them fixed perceptions? Is there a more skillful way to introduce concepts and themes to young children as they're developing?
Well, I don't know how revolutionary we should be to be able to introduce a way of labeling things. Maybe we can introduce the word merely labeled. This is merely labeled computer. I said, what's that, merely label? So I think you can label, this is my computer, this is my merely labeled computer. This is my merely labeled friend. I'm your merely labeled dad. You're also my merely labeled lovely daughter. It will make them think, no, won't it? If you say merely label, I think word merely is very useful to prefix, because we take seriously too ourselves, thinking really. We ourselves think is really the word we use are what the thing is. We don't realize it's just a mere mode of communication. It's like in the old days, people use money, paper money. Nowadays, no, most people don't use it. It's a merely labeled piece of paper. It's a plastic. It's not even not even the nice paper. Now it's a plastic. People, the money is. People hardly now since COVID, people don't want to use the money. It's not only merely labeled money, but truly labeled poison. Truly labeled poison. People don't want to accept money because they think there's a disease in there. So now people are not using so much because they realize, you don't need to carry money. Because there's alternate way of tendering, changing things and swiping the card or whatever people do. So I think it's good to say everything is relative. Everything's relative. If somebody says, "Mom, he's rude to me," and you don't say, "Really? Oh, maybe he's relatively rude to you." It's a very good idea. So you're not arguing it's not, but you are telling it's only relative to how you look at it. So you're actually on your side of your child or whoever, but it is making them think, relatively speaking, because relative is a very good word, It makes everybody think, there is an alternative way of looking at it. It's really true, Relative truth, relatively speaking. And that means it totally is dependent on what you want to choose. If you think it's rude, maybe you are relatively true, but it doesn't have to be like that. People have this fixed view what a thing is, but if they knew the thing is not really from anything from itself, it's all up to you. Give them the power. Give them the power. It's relative to how you take it to be, and you have the opportunity to make it. And like a puzzle, you can give a assignment, you can give a question, you can give a math question. There's not a lot of alternative answer to the math, but other answers. All these quiz shows are very bad for mind. There's only one correct answer. It's not relative to other. It's like a historical data or who kicked the first ball and things like that. Who kicked the first goal in World Cup in 2012 or something like that. Who wants to know that in the first place? Secondly, who wants? There's no alternatives. There's only one answer. That's right or wrong. And that's why they never pay $1 million to anybody. Everybody paying more money to the $1 million show. And they never pay any $1 million. See? It's very deceptive, They think they're giving the $1 million. Channel 9 doesn't give any $1 million, They're actually earning more than $1 million themselves. But by asking these really impossible questions, even those half a dozen people who do research, they don't know which is they have to do research before 4 or 5 days before they can coin the question. So we are really making it really hard. We're putting so much. Academic performance are highly rated, is overly rated. Humanity, understanding, kindness, they don't value these things. So I think we shouldn't put too much pressure to the academic performance, because that's a cause of stress, and they think that's the only way you get up. They don't know the value of kindness and gentleness, generosity. These things are more really valuable thing to teach than actually the digit of your income or what level of the public service you work. And people always talk about what level you are, this sort of thing. We need much more way to people to value in other human values rather than material values all the time.
The environment, there's quite a few questions come in. A lot of people these days feel really distressed by the degradation of the ecosystem, and seems the writing's really on the wall that we need to do something collectively. The questions were, how should Buddhists engage in protests and activism, and but how should we work collectively with all of humanity to try to find solutions to our environmental problems that threaten everyone?
Yes, this is very relevant to what I was saying before, how people should lead more simpler life. If we are living very expensively, we're using a lot of processed food, a lot of processed product, the more we consume, more we are putting pressure to the producers, and therefore the environment. The environmental degradation is caused by the high level of living standard. And because you're using so much material to produce those things, it always comes at the cost of the environment, be that water, be that forest, be that nature, be that beach or whatever. But the more people use those things, that much this environment itself being overutilized or abused, basically. So His Holiness Dalai Lama says this, he says, we have to think globally, act locally, So we do whatever we individual can to conserve energy. But to do that, if individuals or household are much more conservative, what they bought and what they didn't buy, what they use and what they didn't use. And so they are actually directly contributing. So if they're not contributing as much processed things, packaged things, and that's much better than joining a big big kind of protest, but when actually what you're doing is just contributing to just that. So sure, occasional protest movement is good because people take notice when there's a big protest. Maybe resolution need to pass, government need to say how many people came and protest. So the voice counts, but actually people need to do something in their own everyday living situation, what they use that actually is costing too much for the earth, to the soil, to the land, to the water, and water conservation. People collect water, and being able to, people don't do much printing. They use this, these gadgets are good because you don't have, so electronically send informations and don't send the paper things, So of course, there are advantages to this kind of gadget. If you send things and then electronically, but you don't have to print nearly even much of it. So there are advantages of some of the gadgets through which people are using less paper, and then but if you yourself is a kind of lumbering kind of in a business, you might have other ideas. You still wanted to sell as many trees as possible and to sell them, whether to produce paper or whatever the product is, they still are looking for demand somewhere else they will sell. So how can we conserve land which are not used for commercial production of paper? Maybe can have a very nice kind of ecosystem that is not used for commercial values. If the traditional owners or the people have their right protected, then they may not allow this multinational to buy thousands of acres and then use it for big kind of production. So this is all talking about economy. If we want a really lot of material progress, it's come at a cost, no matter what. If we are using materialism and a little bit more simply, I mean, we use less, what we produce less greenhouse, we don't contribute as much as waste, and so on. Of course, then we are actually conserving our own consumption. When our consumption is only controlled by realizing that we really care about Mother Nature. We shouldn't see the Mother Nature as a just land, but it's a mother. It's a mother. Our mother is suffering. Everybody is abusing her. So people cut the land or dig up or mine, as their right. They don't have a feeling that Mother Earth is source of our everything. So we need to respect that, give her a chance to grow and revegetate, or allow it to some certain degree of minimization of over utilization for mining or deforestation, whatever. I think this kind of conservation movement are the things that need to have a greater say, and that's why sometimes politics, if political movements who has certain aims and objectives to conserve environment and an ecosystem, so like the various political parties have their own objectives. People like Greens are very much fits with the Buddhist kind of values of how to respect the nature and not greedily overuse them. And so if anyone is able to use those facilities and connections and to have greater voice up in a decision making people, so I think you can see there are more and more green people and Greens are getting a lot more vote because people are becoming more aware of the environmental problem than the traditional two-party system would give a damn about. They don't, because their agenda is totally different. So we should have some kind of active political participation to have some influence in a very proper way, without resorting to confrontational, aggression and fighting and all those rough kind of protest that actually then defeats the very purpose of it. Should do things like that respectfully and gently and skillfully, try to influence in a very skillful way to very important people who has a lot of power to make the decisions.
You spoke earlier about how as individuals we make a change in our lives and by contemplating impermanence, and it seems like globally we need to make a big change with terrible wars that are happening at the moment, the environment, as you just discussed. There's so many different agendas with different people, countries in the world. Can you see a way that collectively as humanity we could come up with a narrative or a way of looking at our situation as a whole, that, like you say, people in power could actually start thinking differently?
Yes, but yeah, the collective karma of people seem to have chosen certain leaders that wanted to wage wars, and they seems to be completely powerless what he does. So that is the, sometimes we appoint people, or the system itself allows to get people there, and nobody dare to actually differ their view in order to save the skin. So sometimes we end up having a kind of a war that should have never been fought or planned, and there was no winner there at all, no aggression from anyone, just one of the most powerful countries in the world, and its leaders just decide to go to war. Is this something to do with the collective consciousness of the people? Or is it lack of political maneuver in the very people? And so sometimes people become so nationalistic for the sake of nationalistic. They don't realize their attachment to their nationalistic feeling is making themselves look like they have no head of their own. So there are lots of political or collective directions, but one powerful leader do that has a huge ramification. Others are just powerless because of the way United Nations structure is set up. They can veto and nobody can do anything. So the very system they put in to stop the problem could not stop the problem, because they are the problem. they actually create the problem. These are the two most powerful nations, but these are two most destructive nations, because they are the one who has the most destructive weapon, and they're the one who's selling all this destructive weapon to many, many helpless third world countries, making war. They wanted the war to continue, fight to continue, so that they can sell all these things. And these countries are up there who has vetoing power, and therefore, even if you have 150 other countries, the voting, but still someone vetoes, and that's it. So when you have system like that at the top, and where we got a chance, so that shows how unsatisfactory any system is. However much ideals there were there when they first set it up, maybe there's some good aspect of it, but it's certain humanitarian work, bringing some kind of a help to the war-ravaged key people, and that definitely United Nations and its charter is helping. But when it comes to really stopping the powerful countries aggressing and doing, it has completely powerless. It is totally powerless to do anything. So therefore we feel very helpless, and so that is collective. Sometimes it seems to be, this is where the collective karma is. Collective karma is never improving, and it's always going worse direction. They're not putting enough pressure to stop the war, but they're still fueling the war. They're still sending weapons. In the real place where they can make really negotiation possible, really bring sort of the diplomatic, they're not doing any of that. Or whatever safe it is, they don't want it, they want to go that. But deep down, they're actually causing the rift between the two warring parties greater and greater. And so therefore the war is not slowing, but actually is spreading. And so what did they do? They didn't help to diffuse the war, but drag on the war for whatever political agenda there is. So when we are ordinary common citizens of the world, we have become such small globalized community. Now we suffer more than we did in the past. Now we know instantly what's going on, how many people, it just traumatized. Everybody is more affected by the war emotionally, than by the disease. It's just so heart, breaking to see so much beautiful country. People work so hard to build the cities, to build the railroads, build the schools, hospitals, all these years. Even that, with a lot of help from each other, took so many years. And now they're destroying them by throwing in the amazing missiles that they should have never even made. Yet these are super countries, what do you call? Superpower, super destructive. They're only powerful only to destroy. And yet they have the biggest power to veto. And so all the small nations are political pawns, they don't have any say. They just have to, but because they get some help from this powerful nation, and they vote against this, or they abstain, and then they are not willing to stand up. So the world is full of hypocrisy. One thing is written here, another thing what they do, and then so this is I would say this is a sign of degeneration. And so, it doesn't mean that we should not try to do whatever we can locally, but any country like Australia is one of those countries that can have some voice, but not a lot, because it's more of an American tale than an independent country. So because of the political alliance or military alliance, it always does that, and who are we as individual citizens can bring anything. So this is the degenerate sign of how the world itself is. One moment everybody want to plant a tree to save the world, another moment they're bombing them like carelessly, and so there's this just incredible destructive weapons are used to destroy people's civilians' lives, and that there is no avenue someone can really peacefully negotiate and stop this. Not being able to do that is such a shame, such a shame. So that shows how powerless we are and how destructive the others are, and that shows how unsatisfactory the world is, with all of its otherwise beautiful progresses made.
There's another question that ties into this. Prayer is something that's been used for thousands of years in different religions, spiritual traditions. What does Buddhism think about prayer? Does prayer have power? We feel helpless with these situations that are going on. Is prayer something that's just faith-based, or is there some practical application towards shifting collective karma and thinking that we can utilize prayer in such difficult times?
Yes, a group of school students asked me, who do Buddhists pray to? Because they ask this knowing that Buddhists don't believe in God, who you ask prayer to be answered. So the same, so that this is like this prayer is not so much we ask some holy ones out there to do these miracles for us. It may sound like that because we always call the names of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. We do that. But actual prayer is called verbal merit making. Is we verbally make positive energy by saying good things, whether the God witnesses and listens and make it happen or not. But the fact that we are saying prayers for people to stop violence and do reconciling job, and may peace and understanding develop, may every be kind to each other, may they resolve problems peacefully rather than that. These kind of benedictive prayers, you see, One is supplicatory prayer, you ask someone to do. Benedictive prayer is a may such and such happen. May peace be with you. If somebody says, may peace be with you, you straight away feel so good, you know. As you can see, it's a positive verbal merit, verbal merit, you know. But if someone says, you go to hell, Ben, you know. So, you know, it's opposite to prayer. It's a curse. You know? If the curse has effect, prayer has exactly opposite effect. So when we say, may all beings have happiness, cause of happiness, it's like opposite saying, may all beings have misery after misery. Who will say that? Nobody will say that. Why? Because it's so negative. Why would people say, may all beings have happiness, God? Because it's sentiment. The verbal message is very positive, very much like a sending goodwill, you know, thinking, you know. People get a get well card. People get a get well card. And when they open it, it really makes them so happy that someone is thinking of them and they're sending their wish. So if this kind of faith healing, they call it positive things have a placebo effect, so prayer definitely have, because prayer is one of the 10 bodhisattvas training. You know, bodhisattvas trained to be generous, to be you know, patient, and so on and so forth. But one thing is, even if you practice generosity or patience, still someone will always be crook with you. So what do you do when you have someone very difficult to you? They do not, whatever you do, they wouldn't accept. What do? You pray that next time I'll come around and revisit. This is not going well now, but in the meantime, I'll put him on a prayer list, and may I be able to come around at a better time when things are better, that maybe I will be able to. So you put in a to-do list how to revisit that. So prayer is very, very, what do you call, we call it, your aspiration is not dead. Your aspiration is there. You need to first aspire what you wish to do. And then if you don't have aspiration, there's a death of a motivation. All of the things we have now is once upon a time prayer. And now our precious human rebirth probably were prayed by us. Oh, may I be reborn as with a precious human rebirth, a life when I can meet with the Dharma, and maybe we also did something contributory towards that, and therefore we have precious human rebirth to meet the Dharma. So this once upon a time was a prayer, you know, and so prayers are positive intention. All karma, we were talking before, karma is mainly intention. The intention is good, then if you put the intention, not only wish to do, but pray that it will come into fruition one day, you know. And because of the you propel this prayer, or you projected this prayer, and it has much greater, you know, it's just like shooting an arrow. You know? If you shoot an arrow, the arrow will sooner or later, it will land somewhere. If you never shot the arrow but kept the arrow, then the arrow never left the bow. So if you put a thought with the prayer list, you know, prayer list is very good. It's just know that someone has put you in their prayer list, so that you successful journey, or you know, or you finish the duty very well, or whatever. You feel really supported. You feel this moral support. So in Buddhism, we have this prayer festival. Every monastery have a 10-day or 2 weeks, every annual prayer festival. And we have special prayer called King of Prayers, Samandabhadra's prayers. And when somebody is sick, somebody going not so well, the world is facing a lot of wars and natural disasters. What are we going to do? We feel miserable. If you say those prayers, may whatever world they have to go through this difficult, may this exhaust all our collective karma. May we be able to become strong with this, rather than discouraged and weakened by this. And so it's just a moral booster and a positive verbal merit making. So I know someone in Seattle in the early 60s did a master's degree on verbal merit making. We call it prayer, and this was inspired by Buddhist prayers, because he also Buddhists do prayers all the time, and then the people who he consulted said it's the verbal merit making, because we make lots of verbal, not so meritorious work, not remarks. So if you do a lot of prayers with the right speech, if you practice right speech, if you do lots of prayers, it will bless your speech. It will bless your consciousness, but bless your auditory consciousness. People also hear some people praying, it gives them some comfort. Oh, you're praying for me. And people straight away feel that they are morally supported by those who are praying for them, even non-believers. People say, please pray for me. And you say, yes. Did you do any prayers? You said yes, but do you know how to pray? And then we must start thinking, oh yeah, maybe I can say some prayers, and you just learn, like someone is sick or dying, so oh mani pema, mani pema, mani pema, being able, instead of thinking, oh damn it, oh wish I could visit him, this is ridiculous. People get really negative, but if they say some prayers, they actually become connected with the cause of their ability to cope with that, or recovery, or maybe you send a card, And where did the idea of sending card come from? In Tibetan, we didn't have those card or good postal system as they have in the West, but we have one very good postal system called prayer flags. We have prayer flags, and we print the prayers, and we hang in the mountain, ask the wind to take the prayers, please. They need over there, but I can't go there. So we call wind horse. The wind is the horse that carries the prayers, and we send them good wish. And it's not only that to people in distance, but even people in your village or town going through a tough time. You just hang up the prayer so that their energy is dense, tense, difficulty. What they're going through, may this be quickly aired by the wind horse. This little bit sort of stuck, stale breath there. So they need to be blown away by the wind horse prayer. So you can see all the prayer flags got a middle of the prayer flag. There's a wind horse carrying a lot of gems and goodies. So the horse is a mount to deliver goods in the old days, And so we want the wind to become the horse, to carry our message of prayer, and they receive. Yeah, we have very strong tradition of, you can see the prayer flags, all the prayer flags. We do that not only periodically, but if individuals wanted to go to temple or high mountain, they always just put the new prayer flags for their friends, or if they wanted to do some new project or work or health, or they wanted to sort of clear the airs, clear the obstacles by sending these prayers, and they put their names. And so we do that for the kids, kids programs. Everybody, all the kids write names of friends. They say, may they have let's pet animals. They put in pet animals' names. It's really nice, because they realize they can do something for the sick or dead pet dog or something. They really want to do something, and you can say, oh, you put this name here, he will be go to nice place. Definitely they go to a nice place. Because where they are is not so good. They deserve to go somewhere nice place. And so kids believe. Oh, can I write the name of my cat? They don't have to be great believers in something, but they all can relate to the idea of sending some good words, and then send like some families got kids overseas. They send a nice kind of little drawing for you. Daddy, I love you, or something like that. You can see his face completely lit up. So you can see the positiveness of the sending good messages. And the prayer flags are usually done for all sentient beings, not for finite person, done for all sentient beings. Yeah.
Culturally, Buddhists often have a shrine in their house. Is this something that could be supportive or positive for Western Buddhists to have an actual shrine in their house? And if so, how would you go about setting one up? That's yeah.
Yes, Tibetans are very shrine-centric people. If they don't have a shrine, they don't feel they have a home. So it's like the bedroom in the West, in the master bedroom setup. Then they feel settled. There's the best part of the house is always dedicated for the shrine, whether it's a tanka or a statue or whatever. They seem to grow over the years. You know, they first start with simple, and then they put few things there that are consecrated, however simple, maybe a little photo of Dalai Lama, maybe a good start, or a little image of the Buddha, or something that really means to you spiritually, put there, and then whether it's cloth or painting or printed ones, so you can really see the, and you can, if you can make them look, put some high elevated place where you do in front of it your daily ritual of practicing, and that of course brings the culture of a Buddhist, that at home you do the Buddhist things. You don't have to always go to a temple or a center. Of course, you go there to do very major things, but for your at home, you actually have a little nest where the practice and meditation happen, because you have a prayer room or shrine, simple shrine. And of course, people are able to allocate rooms for many things, you know. Why can't they allocate a little room for practice? You know? Yeah, you know, if the Tibetans, when they move to a house, they always say, where can the shrine go, you know? and it's a completely different priority, you know. The rest of people, where will the bedroom go, you know? And the toilet must be attached. So usually the attached toilet should be the attached shrine room. Yeah, it would be good. Same emphasis anyway. Of course, you can plan your house. You know, you can plan your house where you kind of, so where something nice corner, you put the shrine. I think one needs to have some guidance through your spiritual friends who teach you Dharma, and try to have a simple version. You know, because I know the Jodo Shinshu is Japanese Buddhist. You know, once once they become their follower or member, they have to order this shrine from Japan. That's the deal. And it's quite a big one, you know. One of my in-laws, you know, when I lived in Singapore, our father was Jodo Shinshu. You know, he knows very little about that. He just sings them in Japanese for 20 minutes. He'd get really serious about it because he's got a shrine. Therefore, he's become really serious because he's got the thing before him. So that's not merely label, you know. It's a real thing, you know. Shrine is a real thing, you know. Others are merely label. Shrine is a real thing. You shouldn't point your feet towards it. That kind of advice comes. But I never give them it. Because most people don't know any Dharma. They want to relax. You tell them all the things they can't do, then they wouldn't come. Some people are really shrine. I think putting a shrine does change the culture of person's personal commitment and practice at home. So getting a small shrine is probably not a bad idea. Yeah. So yeah, that's usually you need a statue of a Buddha, book of the Dharma, and a stupa if possible. Or, you know, so whatever you can get, either all together or one by one, and slowly, and then put some offerings there, you know, flowers, water, and whatever, things like that. But mostly try to put something in the home which reminds you of Dharma. And you put order your books or something like that. You also put a cushion there. You sit there regularly, and if you have your own family or young ones, if you want to, you're talking about how to influence the young one. If they see you always, dad sit in front of the shrine, do the practice, they will do that. Quite a lot of practitioners do that, you know, when they have, I think Renee is not here her child daughter sings His Holiness Long Life Prayer or Long Life Prayers by heart, just like the mother. She's not even 5 years old, but she sings the prayer because she heard the mother always sit in front of singing the prayer. And she just learned just because her mother is playing all the time. So I think this kind of thing, and the more we practice, they see the place, they see the thing they do in front of it, and then that's how you acculturate yourself and others to have this kind of paraphernalia that supports your practice, that visibility of shrine, and visibility that you do chanting there, and visibility they hear you chanting. And it's really good because they see you chanting, and then they get influenced, they got exposed. Yeah.
Thank you, Rinpoche. We're almost at the end of our questions now, and there was just one on actually on paraphernalia on the mala beads. Looks like a Buddhist jewelry. If you could just give us a little bit of advice on what the mala beads are used for, and the significance of carrying a mala bead with you when you go about your day. Prayer beads we're talking about.
Oh yeah, I think these are all connected. What we were talking, doing prayers, having shrines, and you have a paraphernalia like mala with you. When you have a mala with you, you know what I'm meant to use it. Is it just to make you look pretty? Is it another kind of necklace to make you attract people to look at you? I know, what is it? The malas are mainly not to show to people so much, but it's mostly to use as a visible companion in your practice. So usually you have a mala bag or something you always carry with you. So if you carry mala with you always, means you always have a visible reminder of your mantra counting. And mala also has when people really become Vajrayana practitioner, they have to have certain gadgets or paraphernalia they mustn't part, Like quite a lot of malas got a little vajra, a little bell in that, So the vajra and bell are two of those items that people must not part. If possible, they must carry the vajra and bell, the big one, and wherever they travel, because they also have a ritual use. Even if not, those are substance of vajra and bell has a spiritual meaning of a vajra body, vajra mind, and a bell speech, and the mudra body. So there are related vows to do with that. So having visible forms of them. And also you use the prayer, after you use the prayer beads, then always put on your head, so it's a tangible, every blessing energy you do prayer, that beads actually carries that vibration and energy with you. So even when the great practitioners, when people come for blessings or something, they put the mala on their head because they've been practicing with these beads, with all the prayers. So they put all the thought and energy in that, and they usually put the mala on the people's head. So therefore, that it has got a sanctity in itself. A lot of malas are blessed by not only daily practice by oneself, also when first the mala was strung, the practitioners usually meant to string the mala while singing mantras. Also they say that the string they use should be the string should be tied by while singing mantras. So whether they were done by that, not commercially, probably not. But when you actually get the mala, first mala, it should be blessed. And after you bless, you keep carrying wherever you go, use it regularly. So that visible kind of paraphernalia with you is a reminder for you to do your practices. Yeah. So it has got a lot of use. So I think that's all.
Yeah, thank you.
We have time.
Really good conversation. I think we covered a lot.
Thank you very much, Ben, and everyone who send in their questions, both those who are here and those from Zoom. Wish you all that your practice becomes a good gift to your everyday life. And please feel free to send such questions, and then we will have Q&A sometime down another few months' time. Thank you, everyone.